In 1922, 6 people were horribly murdered on a remote German farmstead. They were all bludgeoned to death while still in their bedclothes. Was this horrific act the result of something normal and explainable, or something far more evil and paranormal? This is the story of the Hinterkaifeck murders. Before we go into today's story, if you're a fan of the dark and mysterious with a little bit of tarot thrown in for good measure, then I am the girl for you. I upload 2 to 3 times a week on this channel, and if you're really a fan of tarot, you can join me over at my other channel, Jennifer Walker Zen. So if this is of interest to you, I would ask you to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my uploads. Now let's get back into today's story. Back in the 1920s, there was a farmstead called the Hinterkaifeck farm. This farm was located in southern Germany in a very heavily forested area. The owners of this farm, the Gruber family, consisted of the husband, Andrea, his wife, Gazelia, and their daughter, Victoria, and her 2 children, Gazelia and Joseph. In addition to the family, there was also a live-in maid. As far as we know, everything at the farm was going well for the Gruber family until the winter of 1921. During this time, very strange things began to happen. One of the first people to notice these things happening was their live-in maid. She began to notice things being out of place. One of the more stranger elements she began to notice was an alarming amount of tapping coming from inside the walls. She also began to hear voices and footsteps from inside the attic. After feeling overwhelmed and terrified, she notified Andrea. Andrea, even though he was skeptical, went to investigate. The investigation, however, turned up nothing. Nevertheless, the live-in maid would continue to describe what she was experiencing. The tapping in the walls, the voices, and the footsteps in the attic continued. The more insistent she was, the more agitated Andrea became, until finally things came to a head and she quit. At first, everything was fine, except having to do double the work because of the maid's absence was the only real hardship. But eventually, Andreas himself began to hear the strange tapping in the walls, along with the voices in the attic and the footsteps overhead. With him now experiencing these sounds and investigating and finding nothing, Andreas became very paranoid and decided to share his experiences with the rest of his family, who turns out to also be experiencing the same thing. A full investigation of the entire farm was done, which turned up nothing. At this point, the entire family was completely stressed and fearful and began to wonder what was really going on. Although the Gerbers tried to ignore the strange sounds, it was becoming extremely difficult to ignore. Things began to go missing in the house. Most notably was a set of house keys. The family couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something else was living in their house with them. One morning, the young Gazelia grandchild suddenly went missing. The family went into full panic. Later in the day, when young Gazelia finally turned up, she had no memory of where she had been or how she had gotten out. She was just confused and exhausted. After coming back in the house, to the family's horror, a newspaper was found in the middle of the kitchen table, belonging to no one. A few days later, it was discovered that someone had tried breaking into the tool shed. The tool shed looked as if someone had been hacking at the door and the locks to get it open. The strange thing is that no one heard the hacking at the locks. Not even the dogs responded. As bad as things were, it wasn't until the spring of 1922 that things reached a point of full-blown panic. After a huge snowstorm in the March of 1922, Andrea awoke early in the morning, presumably to check the amount of snowfall. He walked to the back of the house and saw footprints. These footprints trailed from the forest area right up to his front door, in which he was standing. What was disturbing was there was no return set of footprints, meaning whoever walked to his house from the forest came into this house Andrea immediately woke up his entire family asking why there were footprints walking up into the house. No one had a clue and were both equal parts dumbfounded and horrified. Andreas, at this point, did a full investigation. He checked the perimeter of the house looking for return tracks. He checked the barn and scanned the tree line, and finally decided to follow the tracks back to the point of origin. When he finally did come to the beginning of the tracks, they abruptly stopped. It was as if they started out from nowhere. After going back to the house, giving it a thorough looking over once more, he finally decided to tell someone about what was happening at his property. So he decided to tell his neighbor, Lauren Slitzerhauser, who lived a couple of 100 yards away. He told him everything from the maid quitting because of the sounds to the footprints leading to his home after listening and not being able to explain the weird occurrences. He offered Andreas a rifle and some ammunition to protect him and his family, to which Andreas refused. A short time after speaking to his neighbor, the family finally got a bit of good news. They were finally able to locate another live-in maid, and on March 31st, 1922, the new maid showed up to the farm. The same date the entire family met their demise. Somehow, the family one by one were lured into the barn and struck in the head by a mattock, a form of an axe. 4 members of the Gruber family were killed in the barn and stacked in each of the corners. The last remaining 2 were killed with the mattock as they slept. 4 days later, on April 4th, a repairman showed up to fix a feeder. The repairman walked around the perimeter of the house and surmised no one was at home. So he went ahead and fixed the feeder, and upon finishing the job, he noticed that a dog that had been on the inside of the house was now on the outside. Thinking that this was odd, he looked around once more and didn't see anyone. He called out a couple of times and still no one answered, so he left. He decided, however, on his way back to tell the Gruber neighbor, Lauren Slitzerhauser, what had just happened at the Gruber's farm. Upon hearing this, Lauren decided to check on Andrea and his family. The first thing he noticed was that all the lights were on. So Lauren, along with a family member, knocked on the front door and no one answered. They then walked around to the back door and knocked again and no one answered. Sensing things weren't quite right, they began to search the farm to see if anyone was around. Finally, after reaching the barn, a limb was spotted sticking out of the hay. After seeing this, the authorities were contacted. Authorities could tell right away that whoever killed the family had still been there after the family was dead. There was fresh food being cooked, their beds were being slept in, the dogs were being fed and played with. No real suspects were ever found. Lauren was at first considered because one time he had asked to marry their daughter Victoria, to which Andreas said no. However, Lauren's alibi was solid. His family insisted he had been home running their farm the entire time. This case is still unsolved. Now that you know the story, let's get some answers. Join me in my investigation. Welcome to my investigation room. Now, I just want to preface this on saying that I have to say this, guys. This is only for entertainment purposes only, okay? So let's jump in here. I'm using multiple card systems. Okay, I'm going to use the Tarot, I'm going to use the Gypsy, the Lenormand, and the Kipper. Okay, and also I'm going to start off with telling you what I felt while recording the story. Okay, so one of the things that came to me while I was recording the story was I saw a scene. Okay, the scene that I saw was a couple. They were arguing. Okay, so it was the time when the maid was talking about she had heard some things going on. I actually saw in my mind's eye of what I found out about the situation. Okay, obviously, again, I'm going to preface this and say This is only for entertainment purposes only. And also, guys, if you have any thoughts or feelings about what you felt happened in this situation, please let me know in the comments below. Okay, so we see the Page of Cups energy. So I felt like there was some kind of new love connection with the Page of Cups energy. There was somebody who felt very hurt. They were very cautious. It seemed like at first there was a couple of people working together, coming up with a creative solution, trying to figure out something here with the Three of Pentacles energy. Also, there could have been somebody working with them, okay, at the farm. That's possible too. I feel though, in the sense though, it was a couple of people that were collaborating together. And we see there was lots of communication, a lot of energy put behind this, and there was a situation that was growing, okay? Also, I'm going to touch upon this in a minute. I won't touch upon it as of yet, but there was a new situation and someone had to take a risk, okay? There was some issues going on and there was hesitation in taking a risk, okay? And then the timing was right, and we see that there was some kind of message that came in. It was an exploratory message, but then someone hid and they were lying and they were deceptive and they were trying to hide. And trying to keep the thoughts from coming to light or a situation coming to light. Someone who was advising someone, looks like a feminine energy, about some changes here, and was because of some kind of pleasure seeking, thrill seeking, okay? There was some regrets, it looks like, when it came to and it looks like this could be the maid here, some kind of needing to put priorities in place or getting back to priorities, and we see that it could have been a maid or a single feminine energy. It does look like there was also a masculine energy, someone who was trying to court someone here who was a single female, okay? Or I could see this another way as well, that the maid could have known about this situation, tried to work together with this couple and tried to help them, but then some things changed around the situation, possibly because there could have been a potential pregnancy or something surrounding that, okay? So I see what I keep feeling, okay? I'm saying this is what I feel now, that there was some kind of potential pregnancy going on, okay? And the maid may have found out about it, okay? And it looks like there could have been somebody who advised the situation, because we see pleasure seeking going on and some changes going on, and we see someone who there's a doctor energy in the Gypsy Tarot, so it could have been an official doctor. It looks like there was some help going on and trying to find a solution here, but because there's some kind of passionate situation and timing, there was like wanting to hide some stuff here with the Seven of Swords energy. And we see house and family. So the reasoning behind it was something to do with house and family, wanting to reunite with a sweetheart, okay, with a feminine energy, okay? So it looks like the masculine wanted to reunite with a feminine energy, okay? It looks like they were like a text message, letter, or document, but something was stuck about this, and there was burdens and challenges because of isolation. So it was like something had happened where the family looked like they may have tried to isolate from the situation or tried to stop the situation, because we do see, again, we see love here going on, okay? And wanting to travel or move away, possibly here, or some longing and missing energy, and somebody wasn't being honest about that with the Fox card energy. We see that there was some kind of decision that was made here, okay? The decision was made and was very sudden, but then the sudden decision was taken away, okay? And then we see that there was this long-term situation going on here, okay? Or distance. Someone was distancing themselves, or they were trying to separate themselves from the situation. It caused a lot of worry and concern. And also we see a lot of regret here because of this waiting around to put the effort or work into a marriage here. So we see the marriage card here with the coming up as possibly what's going on. Maybe somebody wanted to propose or get married here, okay? Because, okay, looks like the maid possibly could have been helping at first, but then something changed about the situation, and then they were like, I have to go back to my priorities, and you know, they felt uncomfortable around the situation, and then they weren't there to help that, and that may have been why what happened with the first maid. that they energy. All right, my darlings, I thank you again so much for watching. Again, I want to preface this is only for entertainment purposes.